Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talking Sense right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to welcome back Alasdair Milroy from Breaking the Mould Accounting. How are you?
I'm good, Ria. How are you?
Good. I know there's a lot of businesses out there that are specifically accounting. They don't necessarily care what the industry is that they're doing that accounting for. But with you, you're part and parcel of it. So you understand the feelings, the desires, the soul, everything that there is about yachting itself. So when you do sit down to do the numbers, there is that feeling associated with it.
It's a really important part of finance function, being able to deliver value to any business or yachting operation, whether it's charter or pleasure, is understanding the operations on board. And if you can't tell that story and then link that back into your finance, your numbers, I think it's very difficult to add the real value around that. It's a really important part to understand the operations. You pick up things that are going on where when you're remote and you're doing the accounting without being on board, you maybe don't see what the crew are doing. And there's always ways we all try to find the easiest way to do some things that we can, but sometimes there's a better way. It just needs some training, or it needs some talking through that process and going, well, actually you can do it that way. An example where for some invoices coming through as PDFs, they're being printed and then a photo taken to get it back into the accounting software, when there was actually a way of just emailing that PDF direct into the software and it being processed. So just shortcuts like that, which I wouldn't have known about unless I'd spent the time on the yacht.
Well, and that's really important, because there probably is going to arise. I mean, it's like in any business, when you are specifically doing something like accounting, or whether it be your chief stew or whatever, your job, you don't know other people's job. So unless you interact with them and ask those questions, you will never be able to give them a solution. So for you to interact with crew and captains and owners, it's very important, because there are questions that arise that you know the easy answer to and the easy fix to, but you would have assumed that they already knew that. But until you spend that time, that's when you are able to give them exactly the advice that they need.
Yeah, and it really brings home the ultimate aim of any yacht operation, is to give that really special experience for the owner or the guest. And whether you're doing the accounting, or whether you're the stewardess, or you're the mate, or you want to have the beautiful shiny deck and everything gleaming, it's all about that owner's experience, from the food, from the surroundings, for the trip, or the itinerary. And it's really important to get on board and really understand and see the work that goes into delivering that and the prep, because these boats don't look beautiful and stunning as we see them without a hell of a lot of work going in. And I think it's really important to see that and appreciate that, and be able to bring that back into, that's where some of the money goes. So if you want to have that experience, there's a cost of managing that, and it's important to invest in your crew and invest in those human beings, make sure they've got the tools they need to deliver that.
Well, I'm not sure how it is in yachting, but I know that in other businesses, accountants are fairly important when it comes to making those decisions on what money is spent on. So the head of the company will talk to the accountant, or the accountant will say, you shouldn't be spending money on this, you shouldn't be spending money on this, etc. Does this put it more in perspective for you then? Do you have a say in what they spend money on? And does this sort of open your eyes to what should money spent be on, or to what money should be spent on?
No, definitely. I mean, I've worked very closely, in this case, with the captains over the winter in terms of what needs to be done. Some of it is that owner experience, what the owner wants, and their personal touches, and how emotionally attached, because a lot of owners are very emotionally attached. It's not a car which gets you from A to B, or a plane, a yacht. It's a second home. It's somewhere you want to stay, and often can have some memories around where your kids spent their summer holidays, and some really special things. So it's got an emotional attachment. I think it's really important to understand that, and that maybe it's not always going to be about, right, we're going to replace that because that equipment, or it might be part of the yacht, which has got a special meaning to the owner, and it's about preserving that. And that's sometimes more expensive perhaps than maybe replacing it, but you've got to take into account that human story around yacht. And I think in terms of any finance function, you're going to get a lot more value out of that. You share that story with whoever's providing the money, and they understand the context. Otherwise, if you're just making decisions on that doesn't cost enough or keep the budget down or keep the costs down, then there's no point doing that if that's not the experience the owner wants to have. But if we think about businesses in general, the failure rate in the first 5 to 10 years, it's high. Not many businesses, I think it's 10% of businesses make it to their 10th anniversary and 80% fail in the first 5 years. And I think a lot of that is to do with understanding numbers and having the right input. And there's different numbers around on what you should invest in your finance function, but it's probably around 15 to 20% of your turnover needs to be investing in your finance function if you want the numbers that are going to allow you to make decisions to grow and not be a business that fails. And I think in terms of delivering a yacht and experience around that, whilst there's often not the income, it's not a revenue driven thing, but it's actually, if you're an owner and you want to get the experience that you want out of spending that, buying a very expensive asset to have these experiences, then sitting down with your finance team and saying, this is what I want to achieve and this is how I want to do it, it's a really important part of running that yacht and making sure you get the experience quickly. And we all know that these are yachts operate in a very harsh environment. Lots can go wrong. There's lots of operational challenges. Some go back to the design phase on the yachts. But if you put some time into making sure the team around you knows what you're trying to achieve and what you want to achieve, your experience on board is going to be a lot closer to what you envisage a lot earlier. You hear lots of stories with yacht owners who first get on board and having to turn over crew a number of times or having issues because operationally, what's been delivered, or you didn't have an operational captain in the build or the refit. So then when they get to see some of the things you thought were going to work, don't. So I think, having that team around you, and that's finance, as well as someone who has that experience around how's this yacht going to be operated and how can it operate at the design phase is really important.
So realistically speaking, to get the best out of your accounting as a yacht owner, your accountant should be part of that team. I know that all yachts, the crew is the most important. They focus on each other, making sure that the team works well. There's companies out there that specifically work on creating a perfect team. But if you want the most out of your accounting, you've got to make sure that your accountant is part of that team and not somebody who is just, as you say, once a year.
I think, you need to see it as an investment. It's an investment in that function. And I think it's someone who can also do a lot of training with the crew on board who are involved in that and help the crew be able to focus on their roles on board. And that'll often have an accounting, whether you're interior or a head of department, there's going to be an element of admin around that. But if you can make that efficient and help people understand why they're doing something, I think that always is going to improve their experience, their training, lead on for them to be able to deliver for that owner and other owners in the future if they move on in their career.
So this is why you're breaking the mold, because you're human.
I wanted to. I went very hard about the name. We're in a fairly conservative industry still, but I wanted to do something that was different than what I could see was being delivered in the market.
I want to say thank you very much. And it's really good to hear somebody such as yourself talk about the human side of accounting.
It's been a pleasure. I love it.
You've been watching another edition of Talking Sense with Alasdair Milroy of Breaking the Mold Accounting. My name is Ria. I have been your host. We'll see you again next time.